Namaste.
Namaste.
Swati Nandi is here today with us. She's from Tumkur, a huge spiritual traveler, the one who has explored many temples. And after having a long chat for many days, today we were able to host you. And I sincerely welcome you for the Sacred Narratives podcast. And this is our episode 4. Very feeling very happy to host you today, ma'am. And the one thing that was fascinating looking at your profile was that there are a lot of travel pages in on Instagram, YouTube. People post they travel to a lot of places, to hilly areas, to bigger temples, the more popular ones and all of that. But you are somebody who does not care about the status level of the temples, but you just go to everywhere possible, the deep inside places, the forest kind of a places, unramped places, unexplored, unearthed places, to know the historical significance of those places, and you bring them light on your Instagram profile. That was something very much fascinating. So to somebody like that, not asking about how to travel to Tirumala, how to go to Vaishno Devi and all of that, right? So instead of not talking like a travel person, I would like to have this conversation with you today in a very more interesting, relatable, to very much specific to spiritual side of it. So ma'am, I just have very few questions to you. From your experience, from your understanding, the kind of basic confusions that I have, I would like to ask you, and for your insights on them.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Once
It's
again,
my
welcome.
pleasure to. Yeah, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to
Thank you.
give whatever I know, little bit like it's a great opportunity to at least share what I know.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Please. Also, my very first question is this: the idea of Swayambhu Lingam, Swayambhu Lingam, the lingams that are there, that are self-manifested on earth, right? Swayambhu Lingam actually means to. But the point of the whole idea behind this is there are so many Swayambhu Lingam temples, like
Mm,
not just Lingam per se. There are many temples basically where they say the god or goddess is self manifested.
mm,
The main deity is not sculptured by any human, it's divine intervention in itself. So, what
mm.
is the understanding of it? And it's not just one, there are many Swayambhu Lingams per se. Like, what is the
Yeah.
understanding behind this, and where does it all start from?
See, according to my knowledge, I believe, like you said, Swayambhu Lingams are self-manifested. It's not man-made. So, all those 12 Jyotirlingas are self-manifested. It's one of the Swayambhu Lingam types. So, other than this, according to Hindu scriptures and all, there are many other Swayambhu Lingams which are self-manifested, and it is believed that it is directly, emerge in response to Lord Shiva, or because of the prayers done by sages and the divine energies, which used to be in a very particular areas like river banks, or like
The
hilly
nature
areas, forest
centric.
regions, caves. Yeah, yeah, ancient places. So what used to happen before was, as per my knowledge, I'm saying, maybe
Yes, please.
spiritual people like sages and people who really earlier, I don't know if there were temples existing even before all this architectural marvels, everything was there. So wherever this spiritually enriched places, like infused with more intense spiritual energy, those kind of places where these sages used to pray, something like positive energy, it used to form in the form of crystallize. It used to crystallize in the form of water droplets. It used to form
Hmm.
scales, which used to be in the form of oval shape, certain point of time. Okay. So that they used to identify that those kind of places, and they used to start praying there, those kind of places. Later, when they came to know the spiritual enrichment which was found in that place, they used to do deep meditation, and they used to get in the form of unexplained methods, like they used to get it in the form of dreams or divine visions, saying this is the place where that is a spiritually enriched place, and they used to go and meditate there. Because of those prayers, that particular space, spiritual space enrichment, the link used to form. I mean, it doesn't used to form like overnight, but over a period of time after praying or after the devotion. used to form. After which, these architectural marvel temples used to build over that, believing that this is a spiritually enriched place where Shiva really exists, and they used to construct a temple where exactly the architectural temple used to be like the sunlight used to form on the crystal.
Yeah.
Basically, the sunlight falling on sunlight is basically positive energy, right? So falling
Correct.
on the that used to be like Swayambhulinga. It
Yeah.
is directly manifested through Lord Shiva. They used to believe that we say in our native language that our belief is our God, right? So that belief is only positive energy which has converted into a Swayambhulinga. So there are many Swayambhulingas other than just Jyotirlingas. And also, what you say, like you said, there are other gods also which are self-manifested, like Hanuman
Correct.
and Shani Mahatma. And there are many
Yeah.
demigods, yeah, which are all
Great.
self-manifested like this only. Only the people's belief system which has made it in real, what I would say.
Nice. So you mean to say there is no first temple establishment, like usually how temples are built is like there is temple establishment, construction happens, and then in the name of Kumbhabhishekam, people actually give energy to that particular place. But self-manifested places are exact opposite. First, energy has been observed, and we believe that energy is spiritual energy
Correct.
directly coming from God and all. People
Correct.
observe the energy and then later on sanctify it by building temples.
Correct. Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. These specific
Amazing.
spiritual energy energized places would be very much near to riverbanks and which are basically harmonized with the nature, which can be like basically Panchabhuta, which we say air, water, fire, everything, whichever where there is completely, it is synchronized with the nature. Those are the places where these kind of Swayambhu murtis, like maybe Linga or any other murtis would, what do you say, it would manifest.
Amazing explanation, ma'am. This is truly incredible. So from there, as you talked about, like you used one word here, not just Shiva, other demigods as well. So
Yeah.
I would like to ask, what exactly or which group of gods you think are demigods? Because every institution has their own understanding of demigods. Some say
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
Vishnu Paramatma is the God, supreme God. Rest are all demigods. But some say Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, the Trimurti or the supreme gods, the other all demigods. Like, what exactly is demigod idea?
Okay. I will say, according to me, as per my knowledge, I think there are major three murtis, like you said, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. They are the main gods, and Adi Shakti. They're all main gods. Rest, all gods are demigods, I would say. Because demigods are like they'll be part human and part divine energy kind of thing, which are actually they are the mediators between God and human.
Okay.
Yeah. So other than these three Trimurtis and Adi Shakti, all other gods are demigods only.
What about the concept of Vishnu and Brahma, like Lakshmi and Saraswati?
What exactly you want to know about it?
Are they also demigods? You mean to say Lakshmi, Saraswati also demigods?
No. Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, those three are main gods. They are marvel. They are main, or you say, supreme of gods, you would say. Okay? So, this supreme of gods, they have their own Shaktis. Like Shiva has Parvati, Vishnu has Lakshmi,
Yeah.
and Brahma has Saraswati. So,
Yeah.
apart from these three, all other gods are demigods. It may be Nandi, it may be Hanuman, it may be Shani, Ishvara, it may be anybody, including Narasimha Swami also. They're all demigods, which come during the circumstances when the human race needed. So,
Does
apart
that
from
mean in a
this,
hierarchical way they are lower than the supreme power? Because what we have seen is Narsimha is just the avatar of Mahavishnu, were equally the same. But when you say Narsimha is the demigod, does that become in a hierarchical way a lower than Vishnu himself?
I would not say hierarchical thing. Every demigod has its own way of mediating between human and main god. For example, there are different situations which may arrive in a person's life. A person, if he or she is staying in a village, they might need a protection from the village premises, like not entering any evil things and all. For that, there is a demigod which is called as Grama Devata. Her
Hmm.
job is to protect the village from the evil things entering inside. So similarly, if we say Lord Hanuman, so there are many stories which see, if people don't believe in demigod, we can consider them as influencers which influence on persons. Like we can consider their stories and we can use it as a motivational wisdom things. Like for example, Lord Hanuman. What do you say? We can
Hmm.
consider, we chant Hanuman Chalisa. When do we chant Hanuman Chalisa? When we are scared, right? It is based
Yeah.
on his bravery and strength, wisdom of extraordinary strength. We consider him as a powerful person. So we cannot.
Yeah.
That's how. So every demigod has a what do you say? Separate kind of hierarchy. Not even hierarchy. Job description, I would say, to be precise.
Hmm. Yeah.
So Lord Kartikeya, if a person has some issues with the family, they pray to Kartikeya. It is believed. So every demigod has a purpose in human's life to fulfill their need, I would say.
Hmm. So based on the characteristic feature of this god
Yeah,
and based on the situation, we go to that particular god.
correct,
More than
correct,
hierarchy, it's more about roles and responsibilities.
correct, exactly.
Amazing, ma'am. Amazing. So I would like to pull another question from the exact point what you said. You mentioned
Hmm.
a word called Gramadevata. So
Yeah,
Gramadevata, Gramadevi, their role is to protect, right? The security kind of they're guarding that particular
correct,
village, town,
correct,
whatever. So
correct.
likewise, there is something to guard and to maintain or to overlook the families as well. The
Hmm.
generational history can
Hmm.
be like people are there who trace the generational history of it's like a blood relation map kind of that
Yeah,
they easily accommodate themselves with
hmm.
the idea of Kuladevata. So
Correct.
what is the idea of Kuladevata and where is it originating from? Like, how do the families first identify certain god as their Kuladeva?
See, basically, Kuladevata means Kula means clan. It's a particular any
Hmm.
family, and the Devata is deity. So this Kuladevata concept has been fortified right from our ancestors, forefathers. It is, I would say, it is a kind of demigod, we would say. It is a customized form of positive energy in the form of deity, I would say. So the person is into a business, right from the forefathers and things. So they need a business-oriented god which protect their family beings and as well as the business. So for that, they have
Yeah.
a customized positive energy, which is in the form of deity or something. It may be male or female. So basically, Kuladaivam is consecrated in such a manner to protect and nurture the people belonging to the particular clan. Okay. So it is like our ancestral knowledge was so broad during that time. I would say the main reasons for creating Kuladevata is to maintain the genetic track in a spiritual way.
Hmm.
Can I say how?
Yeah, please. When you mention the word genetics and spirituality, I'm more curious. Please tell me.
Seriously, because ancestors established an energy in the form of deities, right? For a particular set of clan. To track the DNA gene, there's
Yes,
a
please.
known fact from science, which we know that, what do you say, father has 23 chromosomes and mother has a 23 chromosomes. Mother contributes XX chromosome, father contributes XY chromosome. So
Yeah.
basically, gender of the child which is born in a family,
Okay.
it is decided based on the X chromosome or Y chromosome. So I'll not
It
confuse
is.
you. So mother has XX, father has
Yeah.
XY. So if the
Yes.
baby has Y chromosome received from the father, the gender will be male child.
Male. Yeah.
If the baby has taken X chromosome from both the father and mother, it is a female child.
Yes.
So since this Y chromosome is not found in female, that is the reason why female is not allowed to carry their own Kuladaivam after their marriage because she won't be able to pass on those generation Kuladaivam to genes to next one. So that is the reason why females,
Yeah.
when they get married, when they go to their husband's home, they follow their husband's clan. So people may be wondering why girl has to leave
Give
their
up on their
father's.
Kuladevam.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes. So this is the level of knowledge they used to have when they have consecrated that level of customized Kuladaivam for a clan. Like they used to track so many things. Just imagine that level of technology, the level of knowledge which they had in their mind during that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I'm a proper genetic student back then, long before. So I know there is this XX and XY, and Y chromosome is only with male, and each chromosome, for that matter, each DNA is nothing but trait. We label it as trait, right? It's about
Correct.
characteristic features.
Correct.
So when you have some kind of characteristic features within you, in your generation, in your family, and you attribute those characters in the name of Kuladevata, and you have God exclusively for
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And it's like girl giving up on Y chromosome. It's like girl is actually giving up on her characteristic features and to coming to another family to taking up their characteristic features in the form of deity over. There is the whole idea of Kuladevata.
Yes. Correct.
This is incredible eye opener. I mean,
And also one thing is these ancestral knowledge, this was to such an extent that like normally I'm not a genetic student, but I know that once this genetic cloning happens, once a child is born, once the family continues, that potency of the genes is carried over till 13th generation. Later it reduces.
okay.
So that is the reason why earlier days they used to say you should never get married with the same family or both them because the genes will not, dilution will happen and the knowledge will not, what do you say?
Agree.
Yeah. So
It
this
will
was
not
the
persist.
concept
Huh.
of Kuladevata back then.
Interesting. A whole new perception for me altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Very interesting. So I would like to ask one last question to you. So you being a spiritual traveler, if I do not ask this question, there is no justification that I can make for the entire podcast, entire talk that you are giving to me. So you have traveled across many places. So one place, can you like tell me that is hitting your mind all the time, that you have had some kind of different experience in the place, and what was it?
Majorly, I visit temples. I feel and I believe that only when God is willing to see us, then only we'll be able to go. That's my perception of seeing things. So whichever temples I have visited so far, I felt Shakti Peeths are the most powerful ones with the genuine vibrations which still exist in the temples, which can be felt only when you go to a particular Shakti Peeth only to see that. Some people, what they do, they'll go for some tour, they'll just visit Shakti. No, it's not, you cannot experience these kind of things when you go to some tour and visit on the way. No. When you go visit any Shakti Peeths for that Shakti Peeth only, then only you'll be able to experience these few things. And latest, I visited the Tara Peeth. Tara Peeth is in West Bengal. It's near Durgapur. So that was my latest visit. And that, right from the journey I start till I reach the temple, there are so many hurdles. It's not so easy to visit any Shakti Peeth, I would say. And the moment you see the Shakti Peeth, you'll forget all the hurdles you faced or difficulties. It's not an easy job. I don't know if you've heard, like our grandmothers used to say, no way is easier to reach a destination, right? It still exists. That kind of difficulties still do exist. I did face those kind of difficulties while traveling to the Shakti Peeths, It's not so easy to get a darshan also if the main deity is not willing to see you. Coming back to my experience,
Yes, please.
Tarapet is one of the Dash Mahavidyas. Hope you know what is Dash Mahavidya, right? Okay. I'll just brief you. I'll not detail. I'll tell you in detail.
Yes, yes, please.
So you know Sati, right? Sati is the first wife of Shiva. So when she
Shiva, yeah.
jumps into fire, before she comes to for her father's yajna, Shiva stops her for not going there because it's just a
Yeah.
mere of disturbing thing. Story. You must have heard that
Yeah.
story. So when
Precisely
the
my name, Sati.
okay, so when the thing happened, Sati got angry that her husband is stopping her from going to her father's post. He is underestimating her, so she
Yeah.
actually shows her all swarupams to Shiva.
Hmm.
That you cannot stop
Okay.
me. I'm this big. You are this small.
One thing that is fascinating all the time for me in Hinduism is that there is nothing like single stand. It's always multiple, and you just cannot have this is the center and this is what you need to talk about. There's nothing of that sort. It's all about having beliefs and perceptions and all that, right? Yeah. So it's vast, it's huge. Thank you so much, ma'am. I have no words to thank you today. I was really, it took long chat and long time for us to connect like this. I didn't expect that I'll get too much of different perceptions altogether, but yeah, you have given a lot of insights, and thank you so much for this evening. Thank you so much, ma'am. Really nice meeting you and talking to you. Thank you so much.